This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Yeah, I just want to see him punch an offensive lineman in the mouth. That's all I want to see him doing. Have him line up across from the other guy and just come out of that stance. Because he, like you said, the way he comes out of that stance, just bull rush that other guy till he can't handle it.
Yeah,
that is going to be a long day for whoever is lining up opposite.
Yeah. Who are you even talking about?
Keon White. It was
White.
Metaphorically speaking. But
you want to see him punch a guy in the face?
just wanted. You saw how big, powerful he is. I just want to see him overpower linemen.
He's a big guy. We'll get to minicamp and all of our takeaways. We're gonna, as we do, we're gonna rattle off position by position as fast and as efficiently as we can.
It'll be about 90 minutes.
So, Marine, strap in. It's gonna be a little while. But I have two takes off the top of the show. Alex Barth, Evan Lazar, Patriots Catch-22 with you. Probably for the next hour and 30, I would say. But like I just said, we're not usually very efficient when we go position by position and run through the entire roster like we like to do. But first things first, right off the top, if you see us on video on YouTube, thank you for watching us on YouTube. You can leave comments, things like that. We love those. If you see us looking down at our phones constantly throughout the entire show, then you all know why. Because DeAndre Hopkins he's somewhere in this building right now that we're taping this podcast in.
Unless they took him out for lunch. It's a little late for lunch. I forgot. I don't have a normal dining schedule.
So this is no joke, no cap right now.
Oh, don't know. You're 30.
I had a dream.
You're okay, but say it right. You're 30.
No joke. This is actually true. I had a dream, Alex, that I was the reason why the Patriots did not sign DeAndre Hopkins, that it was my fault. So I've spent the entire day avoiding the football department side of things here at the office, like the plague.
Wait, well, what did you do?
I bumped into him and I fanboyed. And
you would do that.
And then he got onto a podcast and he was like, yeah, there was like this really nerdy kid that like was all like fanboy and stuff like that. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. It was bad vibes. And I just like the vibe in Tennessee better. And I was like, everyone's going to know that's me.
You do tend to fanboy.
I do.
So that's not unrealistic.
100%. Not unrealistic. So I've been keeping my distance. I don't want to see him. Don't ask me for pictures. Don't ask me to stake it out. I'm not doing it. So we'll be on DeAndre Hopkins' watch. I think for right now it's only 2:00, so everybody calm down. Like the fact that we have no news doesn't mean anything yet.
Yeah.
The report started trickling out of Tennessee around 4:30. I would say on Monday.
Let me go find
we can go find it directly. That good visit, but we're gonna keep in touch, but no deal imminent or whatever. So we still got a couple more hours, but we're on Hopkins' watch here, as is all of New England as we.
Is it bad that I think we're gonna get the same tweet today? Not that that's what I want. I think I've made it very clear how I feel about it. But
no, I think that's very valid and very possible. Because
all right, so hang on. Diana Rossini tweeted at 6:23 p.m.
That's late.
On what was that, on Monday?
Yeah.
6:23 p.m. But remember, Tennessee's an hour behind.
Yeah, I think they are. I think you're right.
I don't actually know if that matters or not, but so 6:23, and then Jordan Schultz was the other one. He tweets a lot. I'm gonna have to scroll here.
Yeah, no, he DM'd it to me, so I got this one.
Yeah.
Successful visit with the Titans. So his tweet was also at 6. So we're a ways away. So maybe here it's 5 if that our time difference clock is horrible, but maybe that's the case. Regardless, the overall point is that no news means nothing at 2:00 in the afternoon. We got a couple of hours to go before we can really hope to hear something.
I would even say if we get no news today, that's very good. That's a very good sign. If we don't get honestly, so I think we're getting the around dinner time.
Yeah.
Good visit. He's left the building. It was a good visit, but he's going to continue to explore his options. Might take more visits. Ian Rappaport said yesterday he doesn't want to sign till camp. There's really no incentive for him to do it. The Patriots have to give him the reason to sign before training camp. That being said, that's what I think is going to happen. That is what I think is going to happen. If we get nothing today,
they're negotiating.
then they're I wouldn't even say negotiating.
They're
I would say they're
crossing the T's and
finalizing.
dotting the
They're
I's.
finalizing. If we get nothing today, they're waiting for me to get in the tee box Saturday afternoon on my golf trip to announce it. I just know it. I just know it.
Or on Monday, which is technically a Kraft Group holiday. Thank you, Mr. Kraft, for Juneteenth. So that's going to happen too. But here's my quick thing on D-Hop, because I do want to spend most of the show on minicamp.
But just to reiterate that point, just to close the point, no news is good news for the next 2 or 3 days, and then it gets a little worrying.
So here's my overarching thing with D-Hop. I have been all in on this to begin with. I see no reason at this point to not just put the bag on the table and make this happen. I really don't. I understand that there's always the fear of the dark horse, always the fear of the team coming out of nowhere and swooping in at the last minute like that.
Which, by the way, I have my team for that, which we can get into, but I have my sleeper team.
There's always that fear. I don't read this situation quite the same, because he's been available since March, right?
Right.
So all the teams that have had interest in him, or whether it's trade interest or now interest as a free agent, he has been available for months. So this is not like a situation where all of a sudden DeAndre Hopkins is available and nobody saw this coming. We've all known that DeAndre Hopkins can be had, whether it was via trade or now via free agency. So if all of a sudden a team comes out of nowhere at this stage, I don't see it. There were no major wide receiver injuries in mini camps or OTAs. It wasn't like one of the contenders lost their number 1 or number 2 guy to a torn ACL, thank God, in the middle of June, right? Because I hate when that happens. So I don't.
Who is it? One of the Saints draft picks tore his ACL in the last play of OTAs.
Yeah.
That sucks.
I mean, that's brutal. I don't see it. I think that Hopkins knows who his suitors are. His suitors have reached out. I think they've been in touch probably for months at this point. So I don't see it. We all want him here. The Patriots should want him here. I think the Patriots do want him here. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on this visit.
Right.
Who's your dark horse?
So this isn't based on anything. I haven't heard anything. This is just objectively looking at things. I was going back through, because when they said he might take more visits, right? All right, we kind of heard the Texans might be a team. Yeah. I know they said the Browns are out, but they could get back in. Maybe, who knows? I know some people talked about the Cowboys. The Bills, the Chiefs don't have the money. So I'm going back through it all right, what teams did we not cover that would make sense? Why are the Jacksonville Jaguars not all over this?
That's a good point.
They have a ton of money. They don't really have that true number 1.
Yeah, Christian Kirk had a great year for them.
Yeah, but he's not that kind. He's a slot receiver.
And they also got Calvin Ridley back.
And they have the court. It's the same thing as the Patriots. You have the quarterback on the rookie deal. Capitalize.
Right. Oh yeah, no, I still think it's a possibility, but I think
I've heard nothing about them.
Calvin
and I don't
Ridley's
get why.
obviously a really good player when he's.
Well, he also hasn't played near. I mean, you don't know.
Yeah. All right, so that's where things stand with Hopkins. I didn't think of Jacksonville. That's a good one. I think that to me, it's just the Rappaport thing about how we could wait to training camp to see if a true contender like a Kansas City or a Buffalo, don't say it, you know Buffalo, Kansas City, places like that could swoop in.
Can I give you one thought on Buffalo on why it really doesn't make sense?
In a second.
Okay.
But the main thing is with those teams, yes, they could figure out come August, Kansas City could panic and be like, oh God, our number 1 receiver right now, not outside of Travis Kelce, Sky Moore, right? And it's not good enough. But that doesn't create cap space, right? That doesn't create wiggle room in terms of money. So yeah, these contenders could recognize, or somebody could get hurt and that could create a spot. But at the end of the day, they can't pay him any more than they can pay him now. So I don't know if it necessarily does the trick for it completely. To me, that Rappaport report yesterday, I think you agree, Alex, was agent speak for, well, just make us a great offer.
Right, give us a reason to not leave.
Yeah, what's your...
So here's the interesting one. Rappaport was on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, this was yesterday, I think.
No, he was on again 10 minutes ago.
Oh.
DeAndre so I'd have to listen to the whole thing, but I'm just reading the quote they tweeted out. DeAndre Hopkins is still on his New England visit, which is interesting. It makes sense to me for D-Hop to wait, but if the Patriots come in with the right number and he's there, anything is possible.
So
my thing on the Bills,
and
this is not even Evan. It's not a Bills hater take for me. This is a legitimate take. We know that there's something going on with Stefon Diggs. We don't know what it is, but the rumblings are it might be contract related.
Oh, really?
I mean, there's been a couple different rumors, but that's one that's been floated. He doesn't have his contract's big, but not a lot of it's guaranteed.
Not a lot of cash.
And well, if he plays, he'll probably hit those numbers. He wants to take care of himself, which he has all the right to do. If your star wide receiver's mad because you're not giving him enough money, and you turn around and give that money to another wide receiver, that's a mistake.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially
for a 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins,
right,
who we're both very high on, but is not Stefon Diggs.
Like, you could see how that rubs Diggs the wrong way. Now it's snowballing, and this is not me saying this. This was Josh Allen said this. Yeah. They cannot be who they are offensively without Stefon Diggs.
Yeah,
he's the guy that makes it all go. So
the Diggs thing,
that's why I rule out the Bills, because
it's a good point.
If it is a financial thing with Diggs, it would be monumentally stupid of them to pay Hopkins. Unless Hopkins, if it's a thing where Hopkins is coming for $1 million, that changes things. But I really don't think that's what's happening.
No. Quickly on Diggs, and then we're really going to get into minicamp. Star wide receivers, and we know this in New England because we experienced it with Randy Moss. Star wide receivers have a shelf life. They all do. Whether it's Randy Moss into the Patriots, T.O. at all of his various stops, for the most part, those types of diva wide receiver types, eventually they outwear their welcome. As good as they are on the field, like Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, right? Eventually it comes to a head. If you're a Patriots fan and you like to hope for other people's demises, like I think I do. I don't know about you, but I'm totally okay with it falling apart in Buffalo. That's totally fine with me. If you want to think like that, that's the angle to me. I don't know about if it's necessarily about money. Certainly money always makes everybody happier. But I think Diggs is growing impatient with the lack of winning. And I say winning, I mean playoff winning, right? Actually winning, not Buffalo winning.
But I was told by all the Bills fans all those regular season wins meant so much.
Yeah, that's why I said not Buffalo winning, winning the AFC East when the Patriots are rebuilding. And okay. Wide receivers like that, they tend to get antsy. They tend to get disgruntled. They tend to get malcontenty when they're not getting something that they want. It might be money for Diggs. It can't be production. He's an all-pro producer.
Yeah, I keep saying that. People saying they need to get him the ball more. How much more?
You're right. No, it can't be that. I think it has to come down. It comes down to whatever went down that week ahead of the Bengals playoff game and then the Bengals playoff game itself. I think he felt like they let go of the rope, right? That. And to him, I think at this stage, it's unacceptable to not be fully locked in. So I'm ready for Buffalo to fall apart. I'm good with that. But let's talk about the team here locally and talk about the Patriots. Here's my big takeaway from minicamp, and I'm curious to get your big picture takeaway, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. And I said this on PU, and it's a little bit of a repeat if you heard it there, but my big thing is with the Patriots right now is that I feel like they now have the coaching chops and they now have the roster to be a competitive football team that is in most games. The question that I have with them is, are they going to have the high-end talent against the other good teams that they're going to play this year, the other playoff caliber rosters, that when the chips are down, they make the plays late in the fourth quarter and they win those football games, right? Are they going to win that Cincinnati game last year? That one always comes back to me just because they had all the momentum and they fumble at the 10-yard line and they lose the game. Are they going to win games like that now? Are they going to win some games that are higher scoring? Are they going to have the high-end talent really offensively? Because I can talk myself into the high-end talent being there defensively from some of the younger players like the last couple draft classes. But offensively, I think that they're going to be competent. I think that they're headed in the right direction. I think that there's a roadmap to where they're going schematically, how it all connects schematically. When we see different pockets of practice, you can see, all right, they're doing this now to build it off of that. And you can see all of it coming together and see where we're headed. There's a lot of instances, that were different from last year in these practices. Okay, it's third down. The defense comes to the line of scrimmage, got 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage. They're showing all-out pressure. They're showing the zero blitz. How are we blocking it? Where are my hots? What are my receivers doing? Where do I go to escape the pressure, right? If we're going to block it and we're going to slide it this way, then that means the free runner is where, right? Like, what's the problem solving going on pre-snap? And the play that I keep going back to, I believe it was on day 1 of minicamp. It might have been that Friday practice. Those two kind of blended together for me.
They all blend together at this point.
They showed that all-out pressure look. Mac made some adjustments at the line of scrimmage, got his blockers in order and made sure everybody knew who was blocking who. Made a signal out to the receivers, and he hit Kendrick Bourne on like a 5-yard slant for a big play against the pressure.
Yeah.
To do that, be doing that already in the spring, they didn't do that at all last year. Like, that never happened, even in the regular season, right? Okay, they're bringing pressure. What's my answer? Like, what's my solve here? And they already have some of that going on, which is really, really good. But I still come back to, do they have enough high-end talent to put them over the top? Like, and I'm not just talking about receivers. I'm also talking about tackle. And I'm also talking about the quarterback. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is 3rd and 6, take away the down. 2 minutes to go, 3-point, you're trailing by 3. Like, can you put the drive together? Can you march down the field? Can you finish the game? Can the defense get off the field and present that opportunity for the offense? Like, those are the types of things that I'm still not 100% sure, because the 2 Bills, I think I'm going to start calling them that.
No, because, it's already a thing.
I know, but it's so much easier
But it has such a different connotation. Just call them Bill and Bill.
Bill and Bill can do all the smoke and mirrors. They can do all the scheming. They can do all the game planning. They can do all the disguising defensively and motion and RPO and this and that offensively. At the end of the day, it's going to be our best against your best. And is the Patriots' best going to be good enough? And I'm not talking about good enough against like the Commanders, right? We're talking about good enough against Philly in week 1, Buffalo, Miami, assuming Tua is healthy, now the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. And I still have some serious doubts about whether or not they have enough in that department. There's a couple of sources where that can come from. One, the quarterback takes a big leap forward, right? If Mac Jones is a much, much improved passer and playmaker, then maybe that propels them forward. The other one is obviously the one that we just spent 15 minutes talking about, right? And that's DeAndre Hopkins coming here. But internally, your veteran receivers, like, I'm impressed by Gesicki. I'm going to talk about him positively when we get to the tight ends or whatever you want to call them. They're kind of known commodities, right? Like, you know, as much as Mike Gesicki, I think, is a good football player, Mike Gesicki is not going for 1,400 yards, right? Like, we know who Mike Gesicki is at his best.
Clip it. Evan says Mike Gesicki's not going for 1,400 yards.
We know at his best he's a 700-yard guy, right? We know at his best that Juju is probably what he was last year in Kansas City.
He could, maybe it's just on volume. Juju could get to 1,000 yards.
Okay, but we're capped, right? And I don't mean it in the other way. I mean, like, there's a ceiling to all of this.
Yeah.
And
by the way, what'd you say Gesicki's?
I think
800?
700, right? In Miami? Like
780 in 2021.
Yeah. So that's a ceiling. That was his best year.
That's a fair one.
Right. And so I just don't I don't know where the needle mover comes, and that's exactly how I felt going in. So I think in a lot of ways, and if you want to spin it positively, minicamp and OTAs confirmed all of my priors, right? Like, in a good way. They're a competent offense. They're being well coached again. They're together. They have a plan that we can see coming together that will hopefully come together by the end of August. And defensively, they've got all sorts of options and talent and versatility and a lot of fun on that side of the ball. And I'm bullish on the defense, so we'll get to that in a second. But I still just feel like offensively, I can't get to that point where I feel like really, really excited about this group. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be good, but I'm still just not sure that they're going to be where they truly need to be. In a lot of the ways, you know, those clutch plays, those fourth quarters, the ability to win a game 38-35, right? Like, that's the difference between 7 wins and 10 in this league. is a couple games going your way that maybe you expected to not go your way, finishing and closing out games late, like not having what happened against Cincinnati, not having what happened against Vegas. Like, that's the difference between being in the playoffs and not being in the playoffs. And that margin is still there for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, I think a lot of that was coaching, and the idea is that they've rounded themselves out on the margins a little bit, and they can be better in those situations. My big takeaway was kind of the same as yours. The Bill O'Brien effect is real, and I don't know that he fixes everything, and I still have one major concern about the offense we'll get into. There's some other like minor ones, but I have one major concern about the offense. But in so many facets, Bill O'Brien has turned around this offensive operation. I mean, just big picture, the operation itself. They didn't have to stop practice. They didn't have to repeat things. They didn't it was a normal, Mac Jones' word, normal. Yeah. It was a normal NFL practice on the offensive side of the ball. Speaking of Mac Jones, he is the quarterback. Yeah. There is no competition. They're not screwing around giving Bailey Zappi reps. They are getting Mac Jones ready for the season as they should, which we talked about, whatever it was, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when we previewed spring practices. Mac Jones is the guy. This team's ceiling is at its highest with Mac Jones at quarterback. You can't waste time getting two guys ready for the season. It needs to be Mac Jones getting ready. That's what they're doing. That feels like an O'Brien decision based on some of the things Bill said in the offseason.
Well, I can't imagine O'Brien's here to coach Bailey Zappi. Right. No offense to Bailey Zappi, but
we aren't surprised. We were trying to tell everybody else. And it's so funny. People from other markets are like, why are you reporting there's no quarterback competition? Of course there's not. Yeah. Come here and listen.
Yeah.
And then there's the actual offense part of it and the things they're doing offensively, the motion, the concepts, the personnel groupings, the spacing, the route combinations, all of it that just look right.
Yeah.
That look right. And it's not just a good offense. It's built on Mac Jones' skill set. And I don't even think Bill...
But just like how much of a difference does that make is the real question.
I think a good amount. Not the Super Bowl contender amount.
Right. But back in the playoffs.
Let's put it this way. The offense they were running last year could not have been, forget the whole thing with Patricia and he'd never coached offense before. Just schematically what they were trying to do, the concepts they were trying to execute could not, both pre and post snap, could not have been less of a fit for Mac Jones' skill set. They took all of Mac Jones' weaknesses. Yes, he has weaknesses. They took all of Mac Jones' weaknesses and they put them front and center.
Yeah.
What O'Brien is doing, and by the way, I don't think this is Bill O'Brien reinventing himself. I really don't. I think what he traditionally values and emphasizes
to me
lines up with what Mac Jones does.
To me, what they did this spring offensively, if you went and turned on Alabama's tape last year,
I'm getting to that.
Literally
the
exact same thing.
But it just so happens that all of the things Bill O'Brien emphasizes in an offense are Mac Jones' strength. Yeah. We've seen quarterbacks go from maybe like a neutral offense to an offensive system they're great in. When's the last time you can think of a quarterback, like a guy that actually, was the starter from week one, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
When's the last time you think of a quarterback anywhere in the league that played in an offense that played to his weaknesses as much as the Patriots offense played to Mac Jones' weaknesses last year? I say that not expecting an answer.
Yeah. What was interesting about it, though, is that they thought that they were playing to his strengths. Like I think they genuinely thought that he could air it out like he was doing it at Alabama.
He wasn't going to. Yeah. Like, that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
That's not
I'm just saying, like, I don't think that they purposely went into it.
Okay, so yeah, I don't think they went out there saying, let's make Mac Jones look terrible. I think they misunderstood fundamentally why Mac Jones was as successful at Alabama as he was. The airing it out is a perfect example. And people, I'm the one who pushes back on this. When people say Mac Jones doesn't have a big arm, he can't throw down the field. He can in certain concepts. He's not. You said this a lot last year. They're trying to turn him into Jameis Winston, right? Yeah. It's not 4 verts, just huck it down the field. It's slot seams, RPOs, things like that, which they didn't do last year, which Jeff Howe had the report on, I think it was yesterday, that there are Alabama elements that are starting to make their way into the playbook.
I think it is the Alabama playbook.
Yeah.
Bill O'Brien's Alabama, not Sarkisian's fully, but
no. But remember the whole thing about when Bill O'Brien got there, when Sark took the job at Texas, and Bill O'Brien got there, they had Mac Jones teach Bill O'Brien Sark's playbook because
some elements
Nick Saban said it might have been more than not.
I don't know.
Nick Saban didn't want to change the offense.
No, I think that's valid, but I think a lot of what we saw last year at Alabama was a ton of Bill O'Brien.
Okay, but there are things now. There was nothing in the playbook last year that Mac Jones was running at Alabama.
Some of their vertical concepts might have been
very little. There was very little in the playbook last year of what Mac Jones was running at Alabama.
The dinky RPO screens that they tried to do like 20 times.
Very little.
Yeah.
This year, it is going to be, can I say the heavy majority?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll see what the run game is like. You know, these are passing camps, so we haven't really seen. I don't think we know enough yet to glean. Is this going to be like, you know, the McDaniels, Scarnecchia gap downhill power scheme run game, or are we going? I think there's still too much minutia there once the pads come on to really decide. But passing wise, you saw a lot of that, and I think, you know, obviously we've all talked about it a lot, is the two tight ends, and I think a lot of that was because of availability. You know, they just didn't. Juju wasn't out there, Tyquan wasn't out there, so who's gonna catch passes, right? You're gonna have to. So they worked a lot on the 12 personnel and the two tight ends, and a lot of that was O'Brien stuff, right? So
all right, you want a little Hopkins update?
Oh, what do we got?
So this is
this someone real or is this like?
No, this is more McAfee show. So I'm not, because we're on the air. I can't listen to the quote, but I'm reading the quote that was typed out here. Pac-Man Jones, who is friends with Hopkins, and he's dropped some nuggets before on the Pat McAfee show today. I don't think Hopkins leaves there. I don't think he leaves without a deal.
Okay.
Hang on. You talk a little bit. I'm going to listen to the full quote. You talk a little bit. And
all right.
I'll report back.
Okay. So while Alex is doing that, I do want to segue. We're talking a lot about the offense and the scheme and the big picture. I think you guys get the general idea of this, as we like to call it on this program, the Alabamification of the Patriots offense. I definitely think that that's in full force. I want to talk a little bit about the quarterback himself, though, and Mac Jones and what we saw out there. I think the two positives, Alex, that I saw out of Mac as he's got the phone to the ear right now. This is next level. The two things that I saw that were positive, I mentioned already, was the command at the line of scrimmage, right? And that ability to make adjustments and get them out of bad plays and block up blitzes and make those types of adjustments that are all necessary. And he actually mentioned after one of the practices in his press conference that there's a lot on the quarterback in this system, but he feels like it's good because he has all the tools necessary to make the checks and make the calls and make the adjustments at the line. I think that's a good thing. I think and this goes back to playing to Mac's strengths, you have to empower Mac Jones at the line of scrimmage because his brain and what's between the ears is probably his best asset. And if you just call plays in the huddle and then just run that play, like guys that do that effectively are like the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens of the world, the physical guys, right? The play that we called in the huddle didn't actually work, but I'll just make something
just playground football.
Right. The Patriots don't have that type of guy, so they have to allow Mac to get into every single play properly, and have those check with me's, have those 2 plays called. You know, they used to do this all the time with Brady. They'd have a run play, they have a pass play, and based off the front, based off of the look of the defense, he would say 1 or 2, right? Like whichever one once he got to the line of scrimmage. Those things need to happen with Mac Jones as well. The second thing that I think is really positive.
I just real quick on that.
Yeah.
And that's why Bill O'Brien was the right guy, because Bill O'Brien's offense is predicated on winning before the snap more than after the snap.
That's huge. The second thing, he has made and continues to make some really, really pretty touch throws down the field, right? Like the crossing routes, the seam fades, like you talked about. You know, we posted one on our Twitter to Mike Gesicki. That was like one of the plays of the
Not
week.
Fake.
Offensively, he hit Hunter Henry on a crosser, just layered it right over Jalen Mills and right into the bread basket. Like those types of throws, he can make extremely well. I think there's 2 really, really good things about Mac. He's back on the tracks, right? Like the train's back on the tracks, and mentally he's picking up what Bill O'Brien is putting down, which is I think 75% of what they need from him is to be back to the cerebral, rhythm-based passer, right?
Yeah.
That we know that he can be. I think the bigger concern, or the only concern that I have with him, is not so much that something that he did do or didn't do, in these practices. I can't get too excited or read too much into things until that pass rush is live, because he's the type of guy that in 7-on-7, Mac drops dimes. Like, he drops dimes. He does. Like, he had a 7-on-7 period on Tuesday where it's, high point fade to Devontae Parker, seam fade to Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry makes it's just pitch and catch for him. But what's going to happen, and this kind of gets to the tackle thing, but what's going to happen when there's people at his feet, when the pocket's collapsing, when he has a free runner coming at him and he's got to stare down the barrel? I still don't necessarily think that his physical arm talent, mobility, like, that's going to be what it is. Like, I think we can say that now, that there might not be a huge physical jump for Mac Jones, where he all of a sudden goes from what his arm talent is now to having a real live arm. Like, I don't think that that's coming for him, because he's in great shape. He works with Tom House. Like, he's doing all of it, right? And it just is what it is. So the question that boils down to is being a step ahead of the defense now, are these things going to be enough for him to improve significantly? We're talking about improving on his rookie year, not improving on last year, but improving on the rookie year. And that still is a question mark to me, is the physical tools of it all, because if he has time and space in the pocket and can step into the throw, he can drop dimes. Like, he can make it happen. If he's in a muddy pocket, if he's got guys coming at him, if he can't step into the throw because there's people at his feet, how is it going to look? And you just can't tell in the spring about those types of things. And
the problem is, if you want to jump ahead here, I kind of said before, I still think there's one big question in this offense. Yeah. If this offense is undone by something this year, it's not going to be the quarterback. It's not going to be the coach. It's not going to be the wide receivers. Yeah. It's going to be the tackles. Yeah. Not even, they're fine on the interior. Cole Strange, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, that group is solid. Yeah. I really don't know what they're going to do at tackle. I'm not sure they totally know yet. Yeah. And that's concerning because of exactly what you just said. The best way to throw Mac Jones off his rhythm is to pressure him. Now, they can offset that with some concepts too, right? Quick passes, things like that. Right, but at a certain point,
you have concerns about that. Like, you don't. So the comparison that I keep going back to is, remember Miami a couple years ago with Tua? They just had a terrible offensive line, and they essentially had to be like a 5-yard pass offense. Yeah. They had Jalen Waddle in his rookie year catching like 8-yard passes, right? Because they just couldn't block it. Right. And so everything became smoke and mirrors with that offense. Now, that style of offense actually gave the Patriots defense some trouble, but all of it was RPO, motion, like everything was happening in like a 10-yard box.
But isn't that what O'Brien does?
So I think so. And that's why I pushed back a little bit on some of the reporting out there about all the check downs that Mac was throwing. Like, there's check downs, and then there's just running the progression, right? And O'Brien, would you call a juke route to Julian Edelman over the middle of a check down?
No, but people think it is. Right. So, and that's the other part of it. They're maximizing certain guys who I think are better yak receivers. Yeah. And this is also where Hopkins comes in as well. Again, can they you're right, Mac's never going to be a gunslinger, but he's far enough along that they can put the pieces around him to make it work. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. That there's always going to be questions about pressure. There's no quarterback is perfect. There was one perfect quarterback that's ever played the game. He just retired a couple months ago. Yeah, that's it.
But I think that with Brady, and not to keep I hate doing this, but he was able to beat pressure with his release, right? Like, he was
this is my point.
And if they can get Mac to that point, then I'm less concerned, I suppose.
So this is my point. We used to do this all the time with Brady about him being his own best pass protector, right? Because he'd get on that back foot, get the snap back foot, boom, the ball's out. Everybody remembers the clip from the 2018 playoffs where Joey Bosa's Joey Bosa. I always get them mixed up. Joey Bosa's like,
Chargers.
Right. Joey Bosa's like, can you stop throwing the ball so quick? I don't have time to get to you. Mac is going to need to do that this year. So where he does struggle with pressure, and that's harder to change. Yeah. And this is where, again, you bring Bill O'Brien and that whole pre-snap element you just addressed into it. Can he be calmer when he knows the blitz is coming? Right? Because if you can at least get him to dissect a blitz and throw into it quickly.
Because he just doesn't have he needs to be a step ahead.
Right.
And it's not only it's with anticipation too,
yeah.
right? Like he needs to be one of those guys that, like, when the crosser is coming over the middle, he hasn't cleared the linebacker yet, but he throws it on the other side of the linebacker and it throws him into the pass.
Which we think Mac Jones can do. Like, everything about Mac Jones tells us that's a step he should be able to make. He wasn't asked to really do any of that last year because that's not how that offense worked.
And this is sort of where, I do want to talk about Bailey Zappi for a second, not because it's a competition, but just because he is on the football team. This is the one area that at times I see Bailey being a little bit ahead of Mac on, and it's more towards the sideline, I would say, than the middle of the field. But I think this is...
Well, because Bailey Zappi played in the West Coast in college, like a true West Coast.
And I think that this rubs off of last year, too, is that there's still maybe a little bit of doubt or, like, lack of confidence in Mac Jones at the moment. That it's early. Like, they still got to work that out of him, where he's still a little bit in see-it-throw-it mode. And he's got to be in anticipation mode. And with Bailey, you do see the ball into the sideline, especially, I would say, outs, comebacks, like things like that, into the boundary, that it is out a little bit sooner, I think, at times than Mac. But I do this every practice we watch, every single one. I ask myself, when Mac is in there, then we see Bailey, like, what is Zappi better at than Mac? Like, what literally is he better at than Mac? I will give him that. I think that he throws the ball to the sideline better than Mac. I think he throws it with a little bit more anticipation and a little bit more zip. Other than that, I'm not sure that there's really anything. The physical tools are about the same. I think Mac's actually more accurate throwing down the field, like deep balls, like with air under it. Not drive throws, but true deep balls. And Zappi, I thought that he struggled at times a little bit this spring, especially that last day.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that, to be like, haha, like, told you, like, score one for Mac. I can't see currently Zappi having the physical tools, not necessarily the intangibles and all. Like, maybe he's in better standing with the head coach. And, like, I'm not getting into any of that crap. The main thing is like, could you see a path where he's a much better football player than Mac Jones? And I don't think it's close enough, or even ahead enough, I should say, for Bailey Zappi for him to truly push Mac Jones. And I still feel that way coming off the spring. Yeah,
I'd agree with you. But again, I think the things you're talking about, Mac throwing with anticipation, he can get there. This isn't a thing where, like, oh, he needs to be more athletic, and that's just never going to happen. And it's something Bill O'Brien, I think, is the right coach to get him there.
I just want to see one time, just throw like a 12-yard in cut with a little bit of anticipation and with a little bit of smoke on it, right? Like, just fit it in there one time. And I think sometimes that throw isn't necessarily there. Like, he can distribute the ball underneath the defense. He can get it out. He can throw the touch deep balls, the lob throws and things like that, and drop it in the bucket. But can he fit a ball 12 yards down the field at the sticks between two defenders and get it there? And in order for him to be able to do that, it's going to have to come out early, and he's going to have to be able to anticipate it and see it before it happens. And that's going to be key for him. All right, quarterbacks, anything to say about Trace McSorley? I got nothing.
No.
Okay.
And we're not going to include Malik Cunningham here because he is a wide receiver.
Yeah, okay. Running backs. This has been oddly something that I've got. I don't know about you, Alex, but I did the mailbag today for us on Patriots.com. Some questions about the running backs. Certainly after James Robinson. I think some of this is fantasy driven. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, probably.
Ramondre Stevenson. Didn't see a ton of Ramondre in the spring. I don't think they feel like they need to see him in the spring. I don't think it's injury related or anything else related. I think
he had quite the workload last year. I'm fine with him getting some time off.
Doesn't really need to be a featured part of the spring. But it is interesting to see the other guys. Whether you want to call him a wide receiver or running back, Ty Montgomery is once again having a great spring, had a great summer last year, great spring last year, doing it again. Whether or not he can stay healthy, question mark. Whether or not it's real, I don't necessarily have as many questions about that. I think Ty Montgomery could be a useful player for the team if he's healthy. And I like two things about his game. One, he seems to know the right spots and like read things out correctly underneath. You know, they do run him on some options and some, different types of coverage conversions. Like I wouldn't call them like full like carte blanche, do whatever you want option routes, but he'll sit when he needs to sit. He'll run when he needs to run, like that sort of thing. He's got good hands, and it seems like when the quarterbacks need to look for somebody to dump the ball off to, Ty Montgomery's in the right spot and where he should be on time. And there's something to be said for that. We know how valuable that can be. And he's somebody that really does blur the lines formationally. He can flex out. You can run an empty set, have him flex out wide, and then bring him in and cause that sort of confusion, things like that. So he's got some versatility. He's got that headiness or that instincts to play this position. I think right now, as much as I would love Pierre Strong to take the job, I think right now Ty Montgomery is the third down back. I think he's the favorite for that position.
Well, what's really interesting is there's times where Ty Montgomery was one of two running backs on the field.
Yeah.
And that can get cloudy as well, and I think that's something they want to do. We've talked a lot about Mike Gesicki, right?
Yeah.
And can they, when they put him on the field, they can kind of disguise 11 personnel or 12 personnel, and the other team doesn't know. There might be some of that with Ty Montgomery, too.
Yeah.
Are they in 11 or are they in 21 with him? And for that to work, though, you need Pierre Strong and or Kevin Harris to be able to be like a solid second running back behind Ramondre Stevenson.
Right.
I would say both of those guys were involved during the spring. And this is something I've talked about.
Yep.
The idea that they didn't play last year because the coaching staff is out on them and they're buried or whatever, not the case.
Yeah.
I think the coaching staff still really likes both of these guys. I think they're both going to get a shot to contribute this year. In some way, those four, that's a solid running back room.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the depth or the running back room at all.
I'd like to see him add, and this is really niche, add one more guy that you can stash on the practice squad, and if somebody gets hurt, you can call him up, and he's been here. You're not getting him off the street. Maybe that's J.J. Taylor.
Right, but maybe somebody that's more of in the early down mold than J.J. Taylor, I guess.
Or just, bigger. Yeah. So you want a name? You're going to roll your eyes. You want a name?
Like names.
Reggie Corbin is the starting. God. Do you know who that is?
Yes. What do you mean Reggie Corbin? All right, go.
It's the starting running back for the Michigan Panthers of the USFL. Oh, my God. Liked what I've seen from him. So, and he's a good, solid, well-rounded, stash him.
So do you feel like, I think the biggest question with the running backs and with Pierre Strong, it was my quick take on the two.
Why do you hate Reggie Corbin so much?
I don't know. Just I don't hear your World League or whatever. I just don't have anything for it. Second-year running back
Evan hates Illinois.
Takes one. Pierre Strong. I don't know if Pierre Strong is yet to the point consistently enough that he's like a volume guy. I think he's a really fast, explosive player with the ball in his hands that's worth giving him those 3 to 5 touches a game just to see if he breaks one, right? But I don't know if he's a true spellback yet for Ramondre. I was pretty impressed with Kevin Harris. His game is not supposed to be in shorts and a t-shirt, right? He's a bulldozing running back, early down to a T, Garrett Blount style back. He looked pretty spry out there. I think we never got to talk to him, but I wonder if he lost some weight or something. He looked pretty explosive, and he wasn't fighting the ball or anything like that, catching it either. I thought he looked a lot better as a receiver than I expected it and stood out in these practices a little bit more than I would expect the 220-pound running back to stand out in the spring. So we'll see with both of them. I'm still clamoring to see Pierre Strong in the open field with the football. I still want to see that. I just don't know if it's 2 or 3 times a game or is it 10 times a game, right? And they need somebody that's 10 times a game. They do. That might be more Kevin Harris at this point. If they really want a Damian Harris replacement of a guy that Ramondre is going to carry it 20 to 25 times and you need somebody else to carry it 10 to 15 times, that might be Kevin Harris.
Yeah, I think Pierre Strong is more your big hitter back, and if Ty Montgomery's going to have more of a wide receiver role, the guy that's stepping in there. I wouldn't hate seeing them add another big body back too if they.
How about Fournette?
I thought he retired.
No, that was Gio Bernard.
Oh,
another former Buck.
I was going to say. Well, I was going to give you another Buck running. Wait, what? Fournette's not a Buck. Oh, Tampa Bay Buck.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of a Buck.
What? Neither one of them are. I love Zeke.
I want Zeke.
I don't mind Zeke. I just wonder. Zeke got a little bit, annoyed by Tony Pollard in Dallas.
Yeah. It's more one of those things.
Is Zeke going to be a sidecar?
My counter would be, is Zeke going to sit out the season?
Yeah. I love Zeke. I've always loved Zeke.
Yeah.
He's not the same player that he was early on in his career, but as a number 2 back, he'd probably be the best number 2 back in the league.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not Zeke would be willing to be a number 2 back.
I also think people underestimate his football maturity.
Yeah.
His football IQ.
Well, he's a great blocker.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like a guy like that in such a young running back room,
Yeah.
I think would be incredibly valuable. Now, I'm not going out and paying him a ton of money. I'm not like paying him over Hopkins, but if you get to late July and he's still unsigned, I'd call him and be like, hey, bud, so if you want to play this year, we'll take you.
I do love Zeke.
That kind of thing.
All right.
But yeah,
so
to get back to it,
Yep.
Yeah, I think Strong's more the guy if they want to get creative with Montgomery where he's going to go. But and I want to get into that a little more when we do the tight ends too, because I think there's something that ties in there. But they have a solid group. It's going to be a rotation, really. I think Stevens is going to be the number 1, but I think all 4 guys will contribute to some extent this year.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the next position and get to wide receiver, this is going to be a hefty one. Let's take these calls, and these guys have been waiting on hold for a long time. Sean in Vancouver, thanks for hanging on. What's up, Sean? Sean, you there?
Sean, what's up?
Going once. All right, Sean, give us.
We made him wait too long.
Yeah, we did. Give him a call. Give us a call back. That's my fault. You guys have been waiting for a long time. Justin, you there? What's up, Justin?
Hey, guys. Hey, just wanted to kind of continue with the conversation you guys were having. So when it comes to Zeke, I definitely agree that I think he has a lot to offer as like the second string running back. How much do you think that kind of like his legal issues in the past and like you said, his personal issues, like as a character, like would affect kind of his perceived market value? Not saying he's been terrible or anything, but just like his locker room aspect,
Yeah, no, that's sort of where I'm at, Justin, as well. And thanks for the call. I don't really delve too much into the off-field stuff. Like that's not. I don't know enough about the situations and things like that to really speak on that. But in terms of like the football side of things and the locker room side of things, my concern is not that Zeke is like, what's the old saying, like, malcontent or a turd in the punch bowl or anything like that. But I would just be concerned that he's not going to be the guy. Like, he's not going to be the featured back.
Yeah, I mean,
he's obviously clearly behind Ramondre Stevenson.
You'd obviously have to make sure he buys in. I'm not just saying sign him outright. But again, it's that kind of thing where doesn't feel like he has a lot of options.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook's going to sign before him.
Right.
I know there's another running back I'm forgetting that's probably going to sign before him.
Well, right now it's really the top ones are Zeke, Dalvin Cook, and Fournette.
Fournette probably will sign before him. Does he want to sit out the year? Yeah. That's kind of what it comes down to me is if it's be the second running back in New England or not play football,
right?
Then maybe he becomes a little more amenable to it. Hey, come here, be the second back. We'll give you some opportunities to showcase what you can do, and you hit the market next year. Kind of, with your stock raise, because he did not have a good year last year.
That'd be I mean, not that either one of them is necessarily still in their primes, but Patriots acquiring Zeke Elliott and DeAndre Hopkins in like June and July would be.
They'd be a wagon in like 2017.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's talk wide receivers. A big position group, a lot of people to delve into here. We will talk about Malik Cunningham in a second, but I want to start with Devontae Parker.
Zeke's only 27?
Yeah, it's just running backs, dude. Like, they just...
That's insane. I thought he was like 29, 30.
I know,
that's
but
insane.
He has so many carries.
I know he does, but I didn't... Just forget the carries. Just, like, I remember watching him in college.
Oh, tons of carries.
That feels like it was forever ago.
I know, but he had a ton of carries at Ohio State. He had a ton of carries early on in Dallas. Yeah, he's been worn down.
He came in 2016. How old was he when he came in the league? He was like 20.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is.
He was a stud.
Yeah, I know. He was. I mean, what he did to that Alabama defense in the playoff game is legendary.
All right, wide receivers. I want to start with Devontae Parker. I never feel bad for professional football players making millions of dollars, but I feel for Devontae Parker a little bit with this DeAndre Hopkins thing because I still think Devontae Parker is a solid NFL receiver, and I still think that for what it's worth, man-to-man on the outside, press coverage. Like, he's the best receiver they have at just defeating press at the line and going up and getting a pass down the sideline. Like, I really feel like he's their best outside receiver. I don't think that's a hot take to say. And I think he's still an NFL caliber X-receiver. He just, for a team that needs somebody to move the needle, it's, obviously Hopkins is worth investing in and trying to move that needle. He was the one guy, and I totally understand. When he was asked about DeAndre Hopkins, wasn't really super thrilled to talk about DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
And I totally get it. I think Devontae Parker, is a really solid NFL player. It just comes back to health, he's staying on the field. And is he solid? Is solid good enough, right? Like, he's solid, but that's not really needle moving or difference making. But like I said, when he sees press coverage and he's got to go up and catch a fade, he's the best they got right now on the roster, if we're not counting DeAndre Hopkins, who's not on the roster yet.
Yeah, no, he absolutely is. Their wide receiver core as a whole, the top of the depth chart, right? You're going to have Devontae Parker as your X.
Yeah.
You're going to have Juju Smith-Schuster in the slot.
Yep.
And you're going to have Bourne and Thornton competing for splitting reps, however you want to qualify that at the Z.
Yeah.
And then maybe Mike Gesicki factors in there too, and maybe Ty Montgomery factors in the slot.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's good, but we kind of saw these last couple of weeks how fast that depth falls off. Because Tyquan, we know there's durability questions with him.
Yeah.
Parker, there's durability questions with him. Juju's actually been on the field pretty consistently throughout his career, but you worry about a guy dealing with a knee injury like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as crazy as this sounds, look, upgrading Hopkins to Parker definitely makes a difference.
Yeah.
But outside of that, for me, it's who's the next guy when it's all rolling the first couple of weeks and then Thornton gets hurt or Parker gets hurt? Who are you adding into that wide receiver rotation so things don't fall off? That, to me, is the big competition. Is it Ty Montgomery playing significantly a wide receiver? Because if so, then you got to get something from Kevin Harris or Pierre Strong.
Yeah.
Is it Mike Gesicki? Well, that might change your whole offense if you're trying to do these 12 personnel things. And then you get down to, are we finally going to do the Trey Nixon thing?
Right.
Ed Lee popped a little bit, but
Douglas.
I don't think it's Demario Douglas because he's a gadget player.
Yeah.
He's not going to step into a role that one of these other guys are filling. He's having his own role. Maybe it's Kayshon Boutte. That's probably who it should have been. That's who I thought it was coming in, but he hasn't been on the field. So, look, last year, at least early in the season, the guy I'm describing was L.J. Humphrey. He wasn't signed at this point last year. He was still a free agent. So, there's still a way to go. There's still a ways to go with that. But, yes, they could upgrade Parker to Hopkins. Absolutely. Outside of that, they're doing okay at the top of the depth chart. It's more just injuries are this group could really get derailed by injuries if nobody else steps up as even just a potential part-time contributor.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair point. I also think that another fair point is, from what we saw, without Tyquan Thornton, there's just no deep threat whatsoever. There's just no vertical element to this offense. The vertical element without him is Devontae Parker winning a 50-50 ball down the sideline or the tight end stretching the seams, right? That's how they get vertical. And I understand that Bill O'Brien's offense has never been chuck it up outside the numbers, vertical, type of offense. That's not what it's going to be, even if they add DeAndre Hopkins. It's just not what they do. But I really think there's a lot on the line with Tyquan, and it's not just. I think people get sometimes a little bit too bogged down in production and stats. It's not about the stats. It's just about having somebody that can stretch the field and having to respect that ability to stretch the field. These last, he was out there for that first practice. I was all jazzed up about it. The 4 practices that we saw after that without him, you could feel it. You could feel that the offense was it was back to operating in a 20-yard box from the line of scrimmage. And if there's no vertical stretch to the offense, it's a problem. I really think that they need Tyquan Thornton out there simply because they don't have another guy like that. They don't have another burner in the group. It's him. It's it. That's just not what these other guys do. It's not what Hopkins is either. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can stay healthy, if he can stay on the field. I'm not as worried about the depth because I find it interesting, and we have a question here. I'm assuming a lot of people are asking this, but if they do sign Hopkins, who's the odd man out is like the hot question, right?
Parker.
And a lot of questions, Thomas asks, like, why not keep both? And I think the problem that I keep on coming back to is it might be in the best interest of the depth of the football team to keep both, but can you keep both of them happy?
Right. Parker is in a contract year. He's a veteran. He's an established player. He's going to want to play.
Yeah.
He's not going to want to be here. Also, they're going to want to open money back up. It's $6.2 million if they move on from Parker with no dead cap. Now, let's just clarify this. We're talking because people have said, like, sign Hopkins today, cut Parker tomorrow.
Yeah.
No.
No, let it play out.
You keep them both until you have to choose, which is roster cuts, because guys get hurt. You never know what happens.
And I also think that Devontae Parker, not that he has like this immense trade value, but he's an affordable starting wide receiver.
Get something back for him.
I wonder if he's one of those trades at the end of training camp that is for a position the Patriots need to a wide receiver needed team. Like maybe they get a tackle back,
or at the very least, could they get back what they gave up for him? I don't think that's unrealistic.
I would more be inclined to trade him for a player.
Yeah, but
especially that time of year.
But we did this last year. Teams don't trade tackles. Teams don't trade. There's not enough tackles in the league.
Like maybe somebody. I hope nobody gets hurt, but like maybe they feel like they need another depth body someplace else.
Yeah, it could be that. Maybe if Lawrence guy's holdout continues, maybe it's a defensive lineman, something like that. You don't trade him until you have to, but I do think it is Parker. People on Twitter want to know if we can go find Hopkins and get him on the show.
Absolutely not.
Oh yeah, because you had your dream.
Absolutely not.
You leave. You leave. We'll sit him down there. I'll talk to him.
I had my dream, and I also value my job, so I am not going to be doing that. Anyways, let's talk. I want to talk about Kendrick Bourne for a second. What were your just general impressions of Kendrick Bourne? I know a lot was made about the press conference and how he basically just railroaded the coaching staff last year. I sort of snickered at it too. I thought it was kind of funny, but regardless, I don't really care. Like that's for other shows. Like I don't really care about all the drama or whatever. The question that I have with Kendrick Bourne.
Well, let me say one thing on that and what he said about Hopkins and just that whole thing.
Yeah.
His mentality of, I think he's really ride or die with his teammates.
Yeah.
Like his teammates, right? A guy like that always brings the positive energy. Like even last year when it was clearly going rough for him, he was always smiling, all of that. That guy can play for me any day. I'm going to find a spot for that guy on my team.
So there's that school of thought. Do you think that's how they think? Because I don't.
No, I don't.
So him coming out and saying what he did about the coaching staff, and I think what the problem is with Kendrick Bourne that they probably have with him, and this is not sourced or anything like that. I'm just saying reading the tea leaves. He doesn't think that he needs to like bow down to superiors, right? Like he doesn't feel. I don't think that there's.
I don't know that it's that.
I don't think that he gives a crap about what anybody. Like,
I just think
he's
an emotional guy. He's a passionate guy, and I don't think they love that emotion boiling over sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about superiors or him being insubordinate.
They like guys, in my mind, that fall in line, right? Like you take your marching orders and you fall in line.
I don't even think it's that. I think they like guys that put their head down, like the not too high, not too low thing, right?
Yeah.
If there's Kendrick Bourne gets a little high, gets a little low. He's just an emotional guy. I don't think it's in any negative, like, I don't think he means poorly. I don't think he's trying to necessarily be disruptive. I just think he's an emotional guy. That's who he is.
Yeah.
There's benefits in that, too.
Yeah. Well, when he's rolling, he plays with great energy.
I just think they want the guy that puts his head down and
not him.
Right. But
what did you
having
think
a couple of those guys?
What did you think he looked like? Because
I thought he looked good. I thought he looked good.
He looks strong. He does look a little thicker.
He looks strong. I thought his movements were really crisp.
Yeah.
I think, and I say this all the time, I think people really underrate. I think people underrate him as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think people really underrate his ability after the catch.
Yeah. No, I think in this offense it really, really fits him very, very well.
You don't necessarily get to see a ton of after the catch stuff in these kind of practices. It's non-contact, but watching him like cut in and out of routes and stuff like that, he runs away from guys. He can run. He's not like the fastest player, yet he's constantly running away from defenders because he makes it work with subtlety and things like that. I really like what I see from him. He's going to be back in a role this year. He's going to be back on the field this year. Yeah. 2, he's going to be back in a role that fits him. Evan, you know this. My opinion on Kendrick Bourne hasn't changed. Buy all the Kendrick Bourne stock now. I think his potential is immense. I think he can be a really, really solid number 2 receiver, really solid complementary guy. Whoever the number 1 is, whether it's Parker, whether it's Hopkins, it's probably truer if it's Hopkins. But and we've had this conversation other times on the show, right? The Tuesday morning guy, the guy that.
Right.
Even if somebody else is hot, like last year, right? All the teams were focused on Jacoby Myers, and then Devontae Parker got hot, so they were like, we're going to shade coverage over Devontae Parker, and Myers couldn't really, like, nothing really changed.
Yeah.
Right? If DeAndre Hopkins is here, or if Devontae Parker is a really good season, teams aren't going to stop shading coverage off of them, even if somebody else heats up, right?
Yeah.
Kendrick, you sound unsure, but
I think we're forgetting. I just think we're forgetting Juju because he wasn't out there.
That's fair, but I'm saying this isn't even about Juju. It's about Kendrick Bourne should be in a spot where he is going to see one-on-one coverage more often than not.
No doubt about it.
Kendrick Bourne is a guy who is going to make teams pay
and that's
one-on-one a significant amount of the time.
And that's why my message to Kendrick Bourne is nothing to do. I don't actually care about him speaking out in the media.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's great for us. But I don't care. I care because I don't want them to use that as a reason to kick him off this team.
Oh, no, right? Absolutely. Because he can give them something.
Fall in line just for the sake so that you can be here because you're going to help the football team win games, right?
Right.
Like, that's where I'm coming at it.
So,
and it's not like you don't have to shut your mouth. You don't have to be a moot. Like, you don't have to, you can talk. But, like, coming out and saying the things that he said doesn't help him with the coaches. It just doesn't help him.
Right. And yeah, you hope that there's some middle ground there. I would say here's kind of how I feel about Kendrick Bourne. I just thought of this. This is like the perfect way to sum up how I feel about Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah. You
know, sometimes we like a player and then we hear like, yeah, he's good, but you can go get that guy elsewhere. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of a player like that. Like on another team, right?
Yeah, no, I know.
I just had it and I lost it.
It's fine. I know.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's a good player, but like you can go get that same guy in free agency. You can find him in the draft. I think Kendrick Bourne is like one step above.
Yeah.
You can go find that guy. I'm not sure that you're easily replacing Kendrick Bourne. That's not to say that he's an elite player or anything like that, but there's not sometimes say, oh, yeah, there's that guy on 32 teams, right? That guy, he's a good player, but every team has a version of that guy. I don't know that there's 32 versions of Kendrick Bourne in the league. I don't think there are.
So that's a good way of putting it.
It's like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
You can go find Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh my
right?
God.
You're not going to.
The Patriots might have found Jimmy Garoppolo.
They might have. A lot of teams might have. The Vikings. Or there's this really good TikTok about like. It's like the NFL is okay. No. I'm not really either, but people send this to me all the time.
TikTok?
It's like the narrator goes like, the NFL's a bunch of Kirk Cousins, and then it starts scrolling through pictures of quarterbacks, and it's like Kirk Cousins, and like old Kirk Cousins, and it's Matt Ryan, young Kirk Cousins, and it's Mac Jones, and there's like this Kirk Cousins, this guy, right? Yeah, I think Jimmy Garoppolo was broken Kirk Cousins in that video, right? You couldn't do that with Kendrick Bourne.
Okay,
you couldn't. There's enough uniqueness in his game that you can take advantage of that.
Okay, so. That we covered kind of the veteran guys on the team and one that isn't that we continue to talk about because of obvious reasons. But I think the next question is, so they're going to have the 4 veteran guys, whether it's Hopkins replacing one of the veteran guys that already exists or just the 4 guys that they currently have in-house. They're going to have 4 veteran guys, and I'm including Tyquan in the veteran category. Yeah. Even though he's a second-year guy.
NFL experience, like significant NFL experience.
Yeah. The 5th receiver spot is, I think, going to be up for grabs regardless of if Hopkins comes here or not.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question that boils down is it Demario Douglas? I don't think we can really say anything about Kayshon Boutte because he literally wasn't out there.
Right.
Malik Cunningham, Trey Nixon, or Ed Lee, who I thought kind of had a moment or two out there, not like down the field, but like little jitterbugness.
I'm not saying like put Ed Lee on the team right away, but put him on the practice squad, and maybe we revisit next year.
Yeah, I agree. He's kind of like the new Trey Nixon.
Yeah, that's probably. He's going to take Trey Nixon's spot.
Yeah, he's the new Trey Nixon.
So you're right.
Out of that group, who do you think emerges as the most likely?
Give it to me again.
Fifth receiver. You have Demario Douglas.
No.
You have Malik Cunningham. You have Booty.
Yeah.
You have Edley.
So.
And Trey Nixon still exists.
Yeah, and Trey Nixon. So it's not Douglas because he's a gadget player. He's going to be on the team, but he's going to be his own sort of thing. He doesn't fit into this equation.
Okay.
If Kayshon Bouttie's healthy, he's far and away the best receiver you just named.
Yeah.
But that's if he is healthy. That's a big if.
That's a capital if right now.
Right. I think they'll Trey. I don't know if they can keep Trey Nixon on the practice squad this year. Like, they can, but how it will work with all the other numbers, because I think he has enough accrued seasons now that he's limited to, they can only keep 3 or 4 guys with his amount of experience. I think they would default to Trey Nixon as the experienced player, but I can see Edley making a run at it. I really can, especially if things work where Trey Nixon is kept off the practice squad just by numbers, and that. So it's like you have 2 players that you can just keep, period. It doesn't matter. They could be 15-year NFL veterans. They could play 1,000 games. Then there's 2 more guys that I think it's 6 years, and then I think there's 1 more guy that's 4 years.
Yeah.
So, but they change it every year. That's probably what it was 2 years ago. The point being, there's a way. I'm not saying Trey Nixon doesn't fit on the practice squad because he's not good enough. They're going to want to keep, one of the veteran linemen.
Yeah.
Like a James Ferentz, right? He takes up one of those spots. If they want to do one of these weird things again where they're not going to have a backup quarterback on the roster, they're not going to have a kicker on the roster, that takes up a spot, things like that. So
I think Trace McSorley will be here on the practice squad.
I'd like to find them to find somebody better. I don't think Garrett Gilbert's on the team.
I think Trace McSorley will be on the practice squad. I think that they have seen some value in Trace McSorley behind the scenes, like in that Brian Hoyer type
but
role.
He's 26. And Garrett Gilbert is a free agent. Anyway, he takes up one of those spots.
Yeah.
So back to the point at hand. Kayshon Boutte's healthy. I think it's Kayshon Boutte. If not, it's probably Trey Nixon, but Ed Lee certainly makes a run at it. And if it gets down to
no love for Pop Douglas.
I think he's going to play more than both of them. But
he's still got to factor into a position group.
He's
going to be wide receiver.
No, he's going to be a wide. So this guy is going on the practice squad. This guy we're talking about. I don't think this guy makes the roster.
Got it.
Demario Douglas makes the roster. Oh, okay, so that's where we met.
Yeah, so Demario Douglas is your guy that makes the roster.
Demario Douglas is the guy that makes. No, but the 5th receiver, Demario Douglas makes the roster as Marcus Jones backup on offense.
Okay.
The 5th receiver is going to be somebody that is on the practice squad that gets elevated. So
if they need him.
And that right. They're, I think, going to have 4 active receivers plus Douglas to start the season because So you're saying if somebody goes down, who's the 4th receiver? Yes. It's Mike Gesicki or Ty Montgomery.
Okay, I got it.
Right? And this is the guy that when the depth gets tested. Remember Dante Moncrief, the 2020 season?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Dante Moncrief here.
Okay.
That's the guy I'm talking about.
And
it's Trey Nixon or Edley.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that.
And Malik Cunningham will hang around on the practice squad as a project player, but I don't think he sees NFL snaps this year.
The best thing that Malik Cunningham did the entire spring was run quarterback in 9 and 7.
He made one nice catch.
That's the best thing he did.
No, he made one nice catch.
That's the best thing
No,
he did.
respect his one nice catch. He made one nice catch.
I'm not taking it seriously. I've never taken it seriously.
But he did make one nice catch.
Take it seriously. And people that are putting him on their roster projections
he made one nice catch.
How?
Respect his one nice catch. I don't disagree with anything you said, but respect his one nice catch.
I respect his one nice catch for you. But what I really respected was watching 9 on 7 with him playing quarterback and them running read option with him at quarterback and Marty Mapu just doing his thing at linebacker. That moved the needle for me more than anything else.
We know that his real value this year is as a scout team quarterback.
Yeah,
what happens down the road happens down the road.
All right. Tight ends. I know Gesicki's. Call him a tight end, call him a wide receiver. Some people get hot and bothered when you call him a tight end because he's a big receiver.
We literally just got in the YouTube comments in all caps, Johnny and then Lumpkin.
Okay.
As that segment started.
So Hunter Henry looks like Hunter Henry looks fine. I'm not going to spend too much time on guys like that. I was really, really impressed, excited, optimistic about Mike Gesicki. I think that he brings a different level of 2 things. One, explosiveness at that spot for sure. I think that he runs way, way better than Hunter Henry does at this stage, up the seam, across the field, things like that. And I think it's a it's nice to have a guy like Gesicki who's like very clearly a natural receiver, a natural route runner, catches the ball well, doesn't fight it, doesn't look clunky, doesn't look out of place, like running routes and catching the football down the field. Just a very, very big difference from Jonnu Smith. Like Jonnu Smith just always looked stiff, robotic, clunky, struggling to catch the football at times. Mike Gesicki looks like he's been catching a football since he was 6 years old, right? And running routes since he was 8. He's a very natural player. He's fluid. He's a little bit quicker than I thought he would be too. Not necessarily like jitterbug underneath quickness, but that ability to like, threaten leverage and then cut out of a break up the field a little bit. Did a nice job of that a couple times. I really think that you mentioned the 780 yards earlier in the show. I think was his career high in Miami. I think that's in play. I do. And I would even go as far to say that if they get it into a lot more 11 personnel on third down, I would go as far to say that Mike Gesicki might pass Hunter Henry this year.
I think they're both going to be on the field.
I think they're
in that scenario.
I think they might both be on the field, but if you get Hopkins, you have Juju. I guess that could be the 12 personnel.
That's the 12 personnel. Yeah.
I guess, but you know me, I would love to get the speed on the field.
I know, but I think that's going to be it. No, I was impressed by Gesicki too. You kind of put it better there, but it's that thing I talked about it with Bourne where we're not really watching these guys in yards after the catch situations, but you're seeing them do things that translate. And I didn't realize Gesicki, like you said, the agility, right? The quickness. It doesn't come across as much on tape as it does in person. I didn't realize quite how quick he was.
He's an explosive athlete.
Yeah, until I got to see him close up. So that's fun to see.
Yeah, he's going to be a good player for him. Johnny Lumpkin. The way I would sum up Johnny Lumpkin in the spring is that I wasn't expecting anything from Johnny Lumpkin in the spring, but when he wears 65 in white, you think he's a tackle. You think he's a tackle. He's a big freaking dude. And we'll see when the pads come on what that looks like. Anthony Firkser made some tough catches. He can
play a little bit.
Yeah, he can flex out a little bit, I think, too. Can play in the slot. I'm sure he can play a little bit out of the backfield. They're not quite into that yet with the run game and things like that. I, at the moment, would be more inclined to think that Firkser makes the roster as a tight end 3 if they're going to carry 3 tight ends over Lumpkin. We'll see what happens when the pads come on. But more than likely, I think that both those guys are on the practice squad. If somebody gets hurt, there's a game plan that they want to have a wrinkle.
Right.
That's when those guys get elevated.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same spot, kind of like we talked about with the receivers. I think they keep the 2 tight ends. That's it. They'll have Firkser, Lumpkin, Scotty Washington, who I think Bill really likes. Bill spoke highly of. Yeah. And honestly, Matt Sokol. So that's, 4 options you have? And they'll promote those guys as needed throughout the season. Those guys will be practice squad call-ups. So they'll have a third tight end active on game days. And then if and when it gets to the point, somebody goes on IR, they want to keep a third tight end on the roster more regularly, then they'll sign somebody. But I think to start the season, it'll be mostly practice squad call-ups as third tight end. And, they're all slightly different players. Washington's a hybrid wide receiver.
So Washington's interesting. I don't know what to make of Washington because and I want to save this
he's
take.
Raw. He's a lump of clay.
For what I'm writing tomorrow, but I'm going to say it here too. He makes these above the rim catches that remind me of Rob Williams catching an alley-oop, where his catch radius is literally insane.
Do you know who he reminds me of? Do you remember Tim Wright?
Yeah, I remember Tim Wright, but I feel that Scotty Washington has even more of a vertical element than Tim Wright does. He's playing basketball. He's literally catching a lob.
Well, remember the play he made last year? Yeah, right. It's what he is.
But he's not. I don't know if he's good enough at anything else to make an NFL roster. That's cool and all, and he's going to have these highlight reel plays in practice. Devin McCourty said he made him on scout team last year, but is that an NFL rosterable player?
Well, if let's say you keep him on the practice squad, right? You're having some trouble in the red zone early in the year.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, elevate him. So that's my point. I think he's kind of a hybrid tight end receiver.
Yeah.
Firkser's a hybrid tight end fullback. Lumpkin's a hybrid tight end lineman.
Right.
And Matt Sokol's basically just a backup.
The new Matt Lacoste.
Right. He's basically just a backup Hunter
Sometimes
Henry.
I think it's Matt Lacoste.
Fair.
Yeah.
The point, he's wearing 87, but we don't think it's the other guy.
No.
The point being, They kind of have all the bases covered there.
Yeah.
So they can kind of go, maybe one week, hey, we really need to run the ball this week. We're going to elevate Lumpkin. Another week, hey, they have a really good red zone defense. We're going to elevate Scotty Washington. Another week, hey, Hunter Henry's coming into this game a little banged up. We're going to elevate Matt Sokol in case we need him. I think they keep all those guys on the practice squad. So it's 4 players, 3 elevations each. That gets you through 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, and by then you kind of have a really good idea of what you're going to be offensively.
If it gets to the point where somebody really is playing well, there's always injuries. There's always something that opens a roster spot, and you sign them.
So I think that's what that third tight end spot's going to look like. It's going to be on the practice squad. I think I honestly wouldn't be surprised if all 4 of those guys, different games, but if all 4 of those guys are active for at least one game at some point.
Yeah,
this season.
Scotty Washington's just he's an interesting player. I don't know what he is. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if is he well-rounded enough to really make an NFL roster yet? Probably not, but some of those catches that he makes above the rim are ridiculous.
So let me ask you this. Who's their backup X behind Parker?
Right now?
Taking Hopkins out of the question.
Right now?
Yeah.
Gesicki, I guess.
Could it be Washington?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
he's as quality. They don't have a ton of depth there.
Yeah.
He might be, and I'm not necessarily saying
my guess is that they would probably naturally use Tyquan there. If you're talking about true wide receiver 11 personnel.
But I'm saying so you're thinking, because Bill said that Washington's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
When you look at him in that context, and their lack of big true outside wide receivers.
Yeah.
There might be some snaps for him there too.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's a great thing, but that's just the way the roster's. As I said before, the depth falls off quick. I like what they have at the top of the depth chart, but it falls off quick. That could be a spot where Scotty Washington factors in.
All right, let's talk about the linemen, offensive and defensive line. And the reason why I put them together is because without pads, I am not going to evaluate.
Yeah, we also only have 12 minutes left.
We can go a little bit.
I was ready for you to say we're going to do defense next week.
No, we can do this a little bit quicker and go a little long here. Offensive and defensive line, kind of, we're talking more about who's playing where than anything this time of year than really getting into evaluation. My one take on the offensive line that we've talked, everybody's written about it. We've talked a lot about it. Guys, right now Calvin Anderson's getting the reps at left tackle, a Trent Brown situation. We can talk maybe next week more about Trent Brown and the fallout and all that kind of stuff. Riley Reef, Connor McDermott, right tackle. Kind of seemed like Connor McDermott might have gotten more reps with the true starters, with the ones later on in minicamp than Riley Reef. We'll see what that holds, if not, if it does or not. My question with the offensive line, and you know me, I've been pretty steadfast that Mike Onwenu is a guard and should stay at guard.
Yeah,
and I love the idea now that with Cole Strange in his second year, that could be a really rock solid interior trio.
Yeah.
The 3 of those guys across Andrews and in the middle of Strange and Onwenu. If this Trent Brown thing goes south, I am not ruling out kicking Onwenu back outside.
Either way, I wouldn't rule it out.
Because if they really feel strongly about either a rookie or I guess we can throw Bill Murray in there, but I'm not taking Bill Murray seriously yet. But Mafi in particular intrigues me because he's basically got the same exact body type as Mike Onwenu, right? He's just a block, a powerful
6'2",
stout block at guard. Jake Andrews had a couple of reps at guard too, up with the ones. If you feel really good about either one of those guys at guard and you're a mess at tackle, why not think about it with Onwenu, kicking him back outside? That might solve a spot, probably right tackle. He probably goes back out to the right side. And now between Trent Brown, Calvin Anderson, Riley Reef, and Connor McDermott, you have to come up with one left tackle. Right? You got 4 guys to find one left tackle. Can you do it? I think so. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm as worried about tackle as everybody else is. My fear, though, is not necessarily oh God, they're going to get Mac Jones killed and this is going to be a mess. My fear, no, I'm not there because I think that their coaching will be good enough to mask it. My problem is that I would much rather Bill O'Brien in his bag in other areas and not having to coach around poor tackles.
Okay, that's
right?
fair. That's a fair way to put it. I'm with you on that. I just even if Trent Brown is one tackle, And he can play either side, and that's the value in this, because if between Calvin Anderson, Riley Reif, and Connor McDermott, Calvin Anderson's the best player, you can still put your best 5 out there.
Yeah.
But if Trent Brown is one guy, which he generally doesn't play a full season, you're still going with 2, I don't want to say journeyman tackles because they're young, but like 2 guys who've been spot starters.
Yeah.
And a guy entering his age 35 season in Riley Reif. And I don't feel great about that. I'm almost at the point where, I kind of want to see them sign DJ Fluker, Evan. I do.
Too.
Not necessarily because I think he's definitely the answer or anything. I really don't think he is. But if you're going to take a bunch of 50-50 shots, the more shots you have, the higher chance you hit on something. The other thing about Fluker is if Mafi's not ready, you still have the option to kick Mike Onwenu out to right tackle, and you have a guy that's played right guard in the NFL in Fluker.
Yeah.
And he can certainly play that role as well. I think either way, Onwenu should be considered at right tackle.
Me too.
He's certainly good out.
And I hate that. Like I've been really reluctant on that.
Right, but
I think it's time.
It's clearly your best 5 if he's at right tackle.
Yeah.
Mafi, I know we can't really gauge offensive linemen thus far. The one thing I'll say from Mafi, at 6'2", 330, he moves really well.
Yeah.
He gets around. They were doing some things with like screens and stuff where he had a pull, and he's getting out in front.
Yeah.
And his footwork's solid and all of that. That doesn't change a ton when you introduce contact. So it feels worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree. It just goes back to something that Scar would always talk about too, is just your best 5 might not always be what you thought it was. Like, like, all right, what's our best 5? It might be Onwenu at tackle and Mafi at guard, right?
Right.
Like, or
that's what I think. I really think it might be.
Right, and it kind of goes back to 21 when Onwenu went to the bench and Ted Karras came in and everybody was like, "What the hell?"
Right.
It was just.
But it just worked.
It worked. The continuity was there. They were playing on a string. They were playing well. And even though Ted Karras wasn't necessarily a more talented or better lineman than Mike Onwenu, the 5-man unit worked together.
Right.
And I feel like maybe that could be the case with kicking Onwenu back out to tackle. I thought originally that Jake Andrews might be a rookie redshirt, IR type guy, Foxborough flu. Still think that's maybe possible, but he might be the backup center right away. And so that would be interesting to see if, between Russi and Ferentz, can he beat out either one of those guys for the backup center job? I think it's possible. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to punt defense next week?
Just one quick observation. Well, I want to get into the defense, but I can do defensive line real quick. One thought.
Yeah.
Christian Barmore looks really good. He looks healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think he was healthy when he came back last year after a strong start to the season.
Yeah, I like that he's been here, too.
Yeah.
He's been here all offseason.
If he's healthy, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
It's a great sign.
Yeah, he's been here all offseason, which is good. A couple of things for me on the defensive line. One, I count Keon White as a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's playing up on the edge a little bit, too. I wasn't, too high on that draft pick, as you remember.
You were not.
I'm still not totally sold, but he's winning me over. He's winning me over slowly. I think the one thing that he has a little bit more first step juice than maybe I gave him credit for. I like his flexibility to stand up or rush with his hand in the dirt. I think standing up is probably like a first down thing. I don't want him doing it all the time. I don't think at 285 he's pretty heavy to be doing that, in space and dropping and things like that. I don't necessarily see that as part of his game, but when he rushes off the edge and gets downhill and converts that speed to power, he's got the length, he's got the hand power, he's got some explosiveness. He's right in the rotation to me. He's going to be right in the rotation. Is he going to be an every down player out of the gate? No. But I think he's going to be right in that 40 to 50% range, rotating in with the other guys. The other thing I'd say about the defensive line, what is Lawrence Guy's leverage? Please tell, tell me what his leverage is.
Here's my theory, and there's no inside reporting, nothing. This is just a guess. He's 33 years old.
Yeah.
He had a down year last year. I wonder if he's thinking about retiring, and this is simply just, if you want me to come back, you got to before he walks away, I'm just going to see if he can get a little more money. Basically, that's it. And he has all the right in the world to do that. That's not to knock him, but
I'm not knocking him or crapping on him for trying to.
No, football wise, he has very little leverage. He's 33 years old.
Yeah.
He had a down year last year.
He's he's a gap plugging,
right.
two gapping defensive.
The Patriots have other guys that can do what he does. They just drafted one. I think Keon White
Yeah.
could certainly handle some of those responsibilities.
And, Wise has gotten better against the run.
Right.
They open up far more splashy than he is.
They open up $2.7 million against the cap if they move on from him.
Yeah.
So I had him off my roster projection. What I think his leverage is he went to them and said, look, I'm thinking about retiring.
Yeah.
If you can convince me financially to stay around, I'm happy to play another year. But if not, I think I'm done. And players do that from time to time. You see players do that, they're 50-50 on if they want to play another year. So why not ask for more money if you're going to leave anyway, right?
But if it's $1 million, then like whatever. But if I'm the Patriots, I'm not kidding the Lawrence guy.
I don't think he's sitting there saying, damn it, I deserve to be paid more than I'm getting. Like, I don't think it's that. I think it's like, I'm not going back for what they're paying me.
Yeah, my fear is that he thinks that he looks at Devon Godchaux and is like, why am I not getting paid like Devon Godchaux?
But that's not like, just personally, that doesn't seem to be like the kind of guy he is.
I don't know.
That's it, like the personality
I had heard rumblings
too.
Last offseason, last training camp, that he was a little bit disgruntled about something. And I don't know. I think that Lawrence guy, I'm not. Look, he's a 2010 All-Decade Team Patriot player.
Oh, he's a great player when he was here.
Great player,
incredible
great
in the community.
I'm really not trying to like crap all over him.
Yeah,
I just, for the role that he plays and for his age and for his effectiveness last year, I just don't see what he's done to deserve a raise. And that's
no,
the bottom line.
I'm with you. And it even if he did, it doesn't make a ton of sense football-wise to do it because, like I said, they have other guys that can do that. I think it's just, there's not, outside of him leaving, outside of him saying, I'm going to retire, there's really no leverage for him.
All right, linebackers. Juwan Bentley looks like Juwan Bentley.
Yeah.
Another guy we're just going to kind of chalk up to that. Before I get into
I was going to say, there's really only one linebacker we need to talk about.
Before we get into my guy.
Okay.
Mac Wilson is playing again.
Yes,
okay.
Actually, that's a good point.
So, Mapu, and we're going to get into him in a second, and I'm going to gush for 20 minutes.
And then I'll do another 20. Sorry, Matt.
Mac Wilson is, he was really the one repping most of the time next to Juwan Bentley. Like, Mapu is still, I think they're still trying to figure out if he's a safety, if he's a linebacker, where they best think he is.
Well, there were time all three of them were on the field, too. There was a couple of those.
Yeah, but I think that for the most part, Mac Wilson's back in the rotation, or at least getting the chance to be back in the rotation. You also get Jelani Tavai, who I think is a important player for to an extent. And
what a year it's been.
I'll tell you why.
You're right. No, you're not wrong.
They behind Judon Anuche, unless you count Keon White as an edge.
Yeah,
I know you hate that outside linebacker.
Yes, thank you.
Jelani Tavai is the only other guy that can play on the line of scrimmage, really, out of that group.
Anthony Jennings.
Well, I'm saying. I have seen absolutely nothing out of Anthony Jennings or Ronnie Perkins.
So I wanted to ask you this.
I don't even know if either one of those guys practiced for the last 3 weeks.
Because this is the big question to me. Perkins, you're right. I didn't notice him at all.
Yeah.
Jennings, I noticed because he got in 2 fights.
Good.
So
that's what we want.
But the thing is, he is one of the few guys that can play the true edge like that. He did play a key role last year. When I was doing my roster projection, I was putting it together last night, and this is how I have it right now. There is still so much time for this to change. The last decision I made came down to Mac Wilson, Anthony Jennings.
Yeah.
I went with Jennings because, again, he was a starter last year. Mac Wilson didn't play defense for the final 5 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
I kind of defaulted back to that. But if you wanted to say, no, you're wrong, it's going to be Mac Wilson over Anthony Jennings.
I think it almost has to be Mac Wilson just because of Raekwon McMillan's injury. Like, you're going to go into the season with the only guys with NFL experience as true inside linebackers being Bentley and I guess Tavai, who's kind of like a cross hybrid between outside and inside. There's just not a lot of depth there if you don't have Mac Wilson on the team.
How often are they going to play linebackers?
I think
so.
That's fair.
Your point, and it's up on 985thesportshub.com. I brought up your point basically by saying they're going to play 6 defensive backs a ton, and maybe 7. So I don't remember in 2020 they just didn't play linebackers.
Yeah,
Juwan Bentley I think had like a 60% usage rate that year, and nobody else over 20. Anthony Jennings actually, people forget him. They talk about how he didn't do anything until his 3rd year. He was their 2nd most used linebacker as a rookie. It was like 20%. You might see something. Well, you're not because Matt Judon is now in the picture.
Right.
But you might see something like that again where there's just not going to be a ton of linebackers on the field this year. I'm counting Mapu is his own thing. I'm not including him as a linebacker
so,
here.
Mapu is his own thing.
Yeah, he is.
It's been a minute since I've been so excited about a Patriots rookie in the spring. I think the biggest thing with Mapu is he plays fast. He plays sideline to sideline. He's got the range and explosiveness. But the biggest thing to me is his anticipation and his instincts. His ability to just read things out and click and close and really see it and go get the football quickly is just a breath of fresh air. I mean, they've just needed it so badly for so many years now. This, to me, really feels like such a big difference maker. If he's playing, again, I will, until the cows come home, continue to pound this. If he's playing at the second level of the defense, it's a huge, huge difference maker. If they're going to mess with it and play him at safety and play him in like a Kyle Duggar type of role, I can see that that's going to have overlap to what I want him to do, but it's not fully what I want him to do, right? And I think the biggest thing for him is like, all right, spy low hole zones like against mobile quarterbacks when they're in man, the cover 2 hole in the middle of the field, right? Like the Tampa 2 linebacker in the middle of the field, the hook defender in cover 3. Like those are high stress coverage assignments in the middle of the field and roles in the middle of the field in the passing game that he can just do so well for them. And I just look across the league at all those types of guys, like the Fred Warners and the Matt Milanos and, Deion Jones before he started to fall off. And that's what I continue to see Mapu's ideal role. His ability to like go from the middle of the field and they throw the football in the flat to the running back or something like that, and he can just shoot out of a cannon and get to it and make a play on the football. I don't, like, maybe since like prime Jamie Collins, like maybe I don't even know. Like, well, like I don't even
Judon
know.
did compare him to Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower.
That's a little bit much, but I just don't know if they've had that player before. So Mapu is my biggest star of the offseason program. He looks to me like the missing piece in a lot of ways to this defense because he gives them speed and range at the second level of the field from the linebacker spot that they just haven't had. I really feel like he's a guy, and I don't want to I'm not putting it all on him to go stop Josh Allen by himself, but like to me, he's exactly the type of guy that could stop Josh Allen.
He allows everybody else to more focus on their roles in that game plan. The discussion, debate, argument, whatever you want to call it, we had like 3-4 weeks ago about what Marte Mapu was going to be, and you had all these lofty ideals and ideas, and I basically said, yeah, it'd be great, but they won't do it. Yeah, you won. You were right. They're doing it. There you go.
He admitted I was right about
You were right.
something.
I'll admit you're right when you're right. You were right. I didn't think they will.
Did hell just freeze over?
I was wrong.
Like,
I was wrong more than you were right. You said you wanted them to do it. I said that's great, but they won't. Turns out they did.
Yeah. So they did some. I mentioned it earlier when we were briefly talking about Malik Cunningham. They did some 9-on-7 in this camp where they were practicing against read option, and McSorley was running it a little bit too as the quarterback, the read option quarterback. First of all, just on one note, I love that they're doing that already because clearly they recognize that they're going to see this a lot now, and they're going to
they're going to see it right away.
They have to practice this in the spring. Like this is something that they had to drill out of the gate. So I love that they're doing that just because they're going to see so much of it. But the second thing is watching Mapu just be the weak side chaser, if you will, in that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just like awesome that he just like watching him go out there. And I talked to him and I asked him about, what it was like to do that and whatnot. And he just mentioned that he felt like in college he had to take over. Like he had to do everything all the time. And in the pros, he's able to just do what he's good at, right? And just like focus on his job and his assignment. I really am very excited about Mapu. I think he's going to be a big-time player for them. Let's talk about the safeties because it kind of goes hand in hand with
We can
Mapu.
do the secondary as one, I think,
So I know that there's a lot to be made about the disguising. There's a lot to be made about all the mixing and matching and who's playing where and, smoke and mirrors, things like that, spin the dial. I like it too. at the end of the day, I think that it's ultimately, though, going to come down to, our football players against your football players. They can do all the disguising, they can do all the rotating, they can do all the spin the dial that they want. But, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to our best against your best. And who's that, finding that right sort of marriage between all of these different similar players, honestly, similar body types, I think is going to be important. To me, it all starts with Kyle Duggar. Like, I think Kyle Duggar is the centerpiece of it all, because I think Kyle Duggar is really the true guy that I trust the most and kind of want the most to be in the back end at free safety, and then obviously spin and move off of that as well. I'm also really excited. I know everybody had a lot of good things to say from Bill about Jabril Peppers and things like that. I'll get to him too. I'm really excited about this move for Jalen Mills. I think that for Jalen Mills, this is going to be better both for him and for the football team to be playing more of like a slot safety hybrid role. We saw him playing some on the tight ends. We saw him playing some over the slot. We saw him playing some deep. It just seems like that's just like a natural spot for him. Like, he just looks more comfortable there, looks more effective there. And it does give them still that flexibility to rotate him into the boundary to really spit it on a quarterback if they want to do that. It also gives them the flexibility if somebody gets hurt at corner that he can still go back out to corner.
Right.
So he's a really valuable player in all this as well. That's kind of the safeties to me. Peppers, it looks good and looks like he's going to be a contributor, but they're still going to have to figure out communication is going to be obviously key in there in the back end. And at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to play center fields, and who is best at that, I still think remains to be seen.
Well, so I fought it for so long because they've said for years, pretty much as long as we've been covering the team, that we're not corners, we're not safeties, we're defensive backs, and I've struggled as much as possible to from a covering the team point of view to kind of split them. We can't this year. We can't. They're defensive backs because to get to your point about the safeties, especially with the communication, who's their longest tenured defensive back? It's Jonathan Jones.
Yeah.
He might be the answer there. And we saw them get into this some later in the spring.
Yeah. I still want him in the slot.
I know you do, but there's a chain reaction here. Christian Gonzalez is going to be one boundary corner. That's a thing.
Yeah.
If Jack Jones...
Yeah, he's my other big star.
So and he was good this spring. If Jack Jones can hold it down on the other side, and by the way, they're a little thin at boundary corner. I'd like to, maybe it's Jalen Mills is the other guy.
I think Jalen Mills is your fourth guy, right?
Okay. But if Christian Gonzalez on one side, if Jack Jones can be the guy on the other, that allows you to play Jonathan Jones as the deep safety who can use his experience, his football IQ.
Still like him in the slot.
But just listen to me for a second. Just listen to me. You kind of glossed over all the weird stuff they're doing with weird in a good way. Different guys lining up in different spots and all these exotic rotations.
Yeah.
They didn't do an install. They picked up where they left off last year. They were on step 6 when everybody else on step 1. To do all that, everybody has to be on the same page. Nobody's going to be better than that than Jonathan Jones. If Jack Jones can be your second boundary corner, Jonathan Jones can play on the back end. Marcus Jones in the slot, that allows you to use Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, and Marte Mapu as basically jokers. Not that's because Joker's an actual football term, like the Joker card in deck.
Yeah.
Joker's wild. Yeah. Can be anything. Ultimately, they should play everybody everywhere. We talked about it on offense, how you can kind of disguise things with Mike Gesicki and Ty Montgomery. That should be tenfold on defense. Once you could have the same personnel out there, one snap, the next snap it's the exact same personnel, but everybody's in a different position. You can do that, and realistically, they should do it well, and they should do it. But what I just described, that is an elite secondary. If all of those guys can live up to what we think they can.
It's a good group. I'm not quite as high on the disguising part of it as everybody else is, because at the end of the day, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, just let me finish.
All right.
These guys are immune to it. They're freaking immune to it.
No, but remember when
what will happen is what will happen is they'll spin the freaking dial, they'll break the thing off against Josh Allen, and he'll freaking hold the ball, and they won't get him on the ground, and he'll turn it into playground bullshit, and it won't matter.
So 2 things,
right?
3 things. Nice swear.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Sorry.
2.
Sorry, Matt.
That's why Marte Mapu's here, right? We just talked about that.
I don't think
3,
against the best quarterbacks. I don't think the disguising works. I don't think
against
it matters.
Mahomes, maybe not. Do you remember when we did the shows before the Bills game last year? You were talking about spin the dial on Josh Allen,
and
it worked.
It didn't work.
No, you came on the next week and said it worked.
It didn't work.
You came on the next week and said it worked.
When did
you
it
said
work?
that they had him confused. They had him second guessing.
A little bit, maybe in the first game.
They forced him in that second game. The second game is they had two special teams touchdowns.
Weird, yeah.
That first game, they held them to 24 points. And you're going to sit here and tell me because they ran the clock in the second half. Because they could, because the offense didn't do anything. The offense needs to be better for them to beat the Bills, period. It does. That has nothing to do with the defense. The spinning the dial work. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't work. It works because I also don't think they're going to spin the dial in the conventional sense. I think this defense is capable of doing some things we've never seen done before.
Yeah.
I'll go that far.
I guess to me, what I'm more excited about, and I don't disagree, but about all the versatility and the spin, I don't disagree. I just think what I'm more excited about is that the overall talent level of the group is improving. And it starts with Christian Gonzalez, obviously, who's out there as the number one corner. At this point in time, I think Gonzalez... Look, the guy's a ballerina on a football field.
Yeah.
He moves like a freaking ballerina. I think for him, he's certainly going to be more like live in your hip pocket type of corner than a splash play corner. But his consistency to take the number one guy or to take the number two, like whatever way they want to divvy it up, his consistency on the outside, I don't want to get too caught up in, is he going to cover A.J. Brown, is he going to cover Devontae Smith, whatever. Like on the outside, his consistency on his side of the field is going to allow Jack Jones to be a ball hawk and be essentially their J.C. Jackson, right? And just he's going to have, if Jack Jones keeps his head on and is healthy, he's going to have, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks this year, right? And that really makes them multiple and or makes them, that much better. And then it comes to the slot, and again, I keep saying it when I say something negative about a player. Not trashing on him. I don't mean to, pick on Miles Bryant, but they are now evolved past Miles Bryant. Like they don't need to play Miles Bryant as much as they've been playing him. And now Jonathan Jones, whether he's in the slot or Marcus Jones is in the slot, they now have a better player there. So they have a better boundary corner in Christian Gonzalez. They have a better slot corner in either John Jones or Marcus Jones. And they still have the multiplicity and the hybrid players in the back end. That's what makes me excited because, like I just said, when they go against Patrick Mahomes and they go against Josh Allen, we'll see about Justin Herbert if he can solve this yet, this Rubik's Cube of Bill Belichick's yet. But those types of guys, they win so often in those second reaction playground plays that, you might be able to spin the dial on them so that the initial play call fails on them, but they'll just run around, right? And they'll they'll figure it out and they'll make stuff happen. So what you really need is you need guys that can lock it down. You need guys that can cover Stefon Diggs. You need guys that can play out of the slot more consistently than Miles Bryant in coverage. You need guys that can go out there and win their matchups. That way when you win matchups, that's when Josh Allen holds the football for too long, right? And that's
that's fair.
That's when Josh Uche comes. That's when Matthew Judon comes. That's when the guys, Marty Mapu comes in the spy and comes and closes and makes play on him. That's what gets me excited, is just that this group in the back end is better than they were last year. It starts with Gonzalez. The two second-year Joneses are coming on well as we saw at the end of last year. It's a fun group. I said on P, I'll say it here. I think the Patriots defense has a chance to be the best defense in the league. And I don't mean just like beating up the Sam Howells of their schedule.
Right.
I mean really, and I don't mean holding Buffalo and Kansas City to 13 points. But I mean like we come away from those games being like they were really, really competitive defensively against, and not the fake competitive, like the real competitive against those teams.
I mean, look, you still have San Francisco, you still have Philly. I would say this. Really good shot. They're the best defense in the AFC. Yeah. It's them, the Steelers, and the Jets. Yeah. That's pretty much it for me.
I think they have a better front than the Jets. I think the Jets have a great scheme.
Yeah.
They have a great system, and Sauce is probably the best corner out of anybody in this group. But I think that they might have a better front than
they definitely have the complete, because it's funny you say that about the Jets. The Steelers have the better front. Yeah. Right? The secondary, they have Minka, obviously, but the corners aren't.
Yeah.
you combine the two of them, the Patriots are the most well-rounded. I think those are
the Patriots have depth and talent at all three levels of this defense.
Yeah,
and
it's just
and this isn't like a homer take either. I've seen people nationally, like Minicamp is really high on the Patriots defense right now. I've seen other people talk about this Patriots defense. They have really good players at all three levels.
I think the one thing is, again, so I think those are the three best defenses. The Steelers have T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
The Jets have Sauce and Quinnen Williams.
Yeah.
The Patriots, finish sentence, the Patriots have Matthew Judon and. I think there's three potential options here.
I think I hear your point that maybe they're a little bit more unproven. And
No. My point is there might actually, so.
They have even more depth than those teams.
Do they have more depth? No, the thing is, do they have that second true star on defense? The guy that's going to be the all-pro conversation with Matthew Judon. So Kyle Duggar.
I don't know if he's going to be all-pro conversation. That safety spot's so deep across the league.
Okay, all right. Let me rephrase that. T.J. Watt, top 5 at his position.
Yeah.
Right? Minkah Fitzpatrick, top 5 at his position. Sauce Gardner, top 5 at his position. Quinnen Williams, top 5 at his position. Matthew Judon's top 5 at his position.
Yeah.
Is there another guy along with Judon on this defense that at the end of the year we will say was top 5 at his position? There's a couple guys who maybe needle their way into the conversation. Yeah. Kyle Duggar could.
Yep.
Could. I'm going to say Christian Barmore could.
Yeah, that's such a deep spot.
I know,
D-line.
And here's where maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I don't care.
Are you going to say Christian Gonzalez?
I'm going to say Christian Gonzalez.
No, not yet. Not yet.
He's so good.
He looks the part. But
is there anybody else that you think maybe gets into that conversation?
Not yet.
Well, Sauce has only played 1 year. We're putting him there.
Yeah, but that's fair.
I'm not saying is right now. I'm saying at the end of the year when we go back and look at it.
Let's talk to me after.
Could Christian Gonzalez have a year like Sauce did last year?
Maybe not the on-ball production because
he's a different kind of corner,
but
impact.
Yeah, maybe. Then
there you go.
The comp that I always go back to with Gonzalez is Surtain.
Is there a chance at the end of the year we're talking about Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez like we talk about T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick?
It's possible.
Then there you go. Then that's my point. Like that's the one thing they're missing, stacked up to those other two defenses, is that second, checkmate player.
Yeah.
But I think they have guys that have the potential to be that guy.
So,
they haven't been yet, but we'll see.
So maybe the checkmate player. Maybe he's a situational checkmate player, but I think Uche has a chance to be a checkmate player.
So that's it, because that's two pass rushers.
Yeah, because I mean 11.5 sacks last year is 11.5 sacks.
All right.
It's nothing to sniff at.
And they were all in the second half of the season. That's fair. I'll give you that.
All right, let's take this one last phone call, and then we'll get to your specialist, your 5 minutes on the specialist.
All right.
All right, William, you got to go quickly. We're really running long here. What's up?
No problem. What's going on, Evan? How you doing?
How we doing?
Good.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey.
Hey, okay, real fast. Have y'all heard anything about the Patriots are interested in trading for Chase Young?
No.
There's your second player. I don't think it's going to happen.
Neither do I. You want him to trade for Chase Young?
No, I heard on Bleach Report that they want land with a second-round pick. That's all I know.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that all you got?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all I got.
Thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
If they had Chase Young, the best defense in football. I don't know how they're doing it.
No, they're not trading for Chase Young.
They would be the best defense in football, hands down.
No, I don't think so. All right. The floor is yours, Alex.
All right.
Your takeaways about the specialists, the rookie specialist versus Nick Folk and Corliss Waitman during.
Corliss.
I said Corliss Waitman.
I thought you said cordless.
He
is cordless.
He's a cordless phone now. What were your takeaways? I have some takes on this, but I want you're the resident special team coach.
All right,
here,
we'll do the kickers first.
Yeah.
I think it's Ryland. I thought it was Ryland going in, but not going in. I was like, all right, he's a 4th-round pick. Nick Folk's 38. He fell off at the end of last year. That's all still true, obviously. The other really interesting development, when they were doing the kickoff drills, which they did a good amount of, it was pretty much just the kickers handling kickoffs, Ryland and Folk. And they split them evenly. But remember last year when Folk fell off, I don't think we ever got a definitive answer on this being the cause, but there was a lot of talk about Folk was handling kickoffs when Jake Bailey got hurt. And it was fatigue on his leg. It was fatigue. That happens. I know people think, it's like 7 kicks a game. you're putting a lot into it when you're
it's like,
hitting those kickoffs.
It's like squatting your max or something
right.
like that. Yeah.
So if the plan, and I don't get why the punters aren't involved in kickoffs. Maybe they will be further down the road. But if the plan is to have whoever is the kicker handle kickoffs, it has to be Ryland.
Yeah.
It has to be Ryland at that point. So Bill was asked about keeping 3 kickers, didn't shoot it down. They did do it at times last year. 2 kickers, 3, especially. Maybe Nick Folk goes to the practice squad, gets elevated for field goals, but you can't do that all year. So I think that's definitively Ryland. Do you want to go on the kickers and we can go back and forth?
I'm not ready to like completely give the job to Ryland, but I'm 90% of the way there. I think that it's very, very, very clear based off of the spring that his leg is just it's a step ahead of Nick Folk's. It's younger, obviously, so that makes sense. He's a younger player, that he's got a little bit more power at this stage, but power on field goals, power on kickoffs, obviously, really outkicks Nick Folk in terms of, if we're driving a golf ball here, Nick Folk is quite a bit behind.
And he doesn't really sacrifice anything in terms of accuracy.
So they had them doing a lot of kicks on the skinny goalpost.
Yep.
And he didn't make every single one of them, but it felt like every single one would have went through the regular goalpost probably or close to it. And more importantly, he has control of the football, right? Like it's not a Quinn Nordine, Justin Rohrwasser situation where he's hitting the porter potties in the back of the practice field. You can tell that he knows where it's going on top of the little bit more range that he has on field goals too. So I find it, Nick Folk really saved them at a time where they were in desperate need of a kicker. But I find it hard to believe that he's going to beat out Ryland.
Yeah. Punter. Corliss Waitman looked good.
Yeah.
He looked a lot better than I expected. He led the league in punts last year with the Broncos, but most of his metrics, I-20s, touchbacks, net average, things like that, were bottom third of the league.
Yeah.
I didn't see him. It's really hard to spin on the ball to pick up on TV. You kind of have to see it in person. I didn't see him last year, but I did not expect, given what his kicks looked like last year, to have the rotation they did. Bryce Behringer was limited. It sounded like he was dealing with some sort of medical thing.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. He's also a 6th-round pick. He's maybe a guy that can get on the practice squad. I don't think he's as much of a lock. It's Waitman right now. There's still a lot of time for things to change, obviously, but
you're a Waitman guy.
I'm a wait-and-see guy because I still think it could be either one.
Nice.
But if they had a pick today, if they had to play a game today, and it's 4th down, I'm sending out Corliss Waitman.
So what were your hang times on both of them? You don't have to rattle off all of them.
I still need to average them out.
Because it felt to me, and I wasn't clocking them quite as closely as you were, but I thought that Behringer had a little bit more height on the ball at times.
Behringer probably had the higher average, but Waitman was a lot more consistent.
Yeah.
Behringer had one period where I think 3 of his 5 punts were all 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But the other 2 were under 4.
Right.
Whereas Waitman was pretty steadily in that 4.2 to 4.4 range, which isn't incredible. But again, I remind everybody this is why they run the 40-yard dash, to see if you can get downfield and cover punt in time. That is the actual intent of the 40-yard dash, why that drill was implemented at the combine. So, yeah, if you're kicking the ball 4.3, 4.4, it could be a little better, but you're in okay shape.
All right. Well, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're on Waitman a little bit. Obviously, I don't watch it and time it as quite as closely
there's still
as you
time.
do,
There's still time for things to change.
Yeah.
Still time for things to change. But and I just realized I said 4. It was 4.4, 4.5, that range, not 4.2. That I was thinking of the slower, because again, Behringer was 5.2 or 4.2, 5.2 or 4.2.
Yeah.
Waitman was 4.5, 4.6, 4.5, 4.6. So he didn't have that many 5-second punts, but okay, so it's not that big of a deal to me. He's kicking it high enough.
Right now, just to chalk it up, it's basically Waitman more consistent, Behringer maybe a little bit of a higher ceiling, right? Just high, a little bit of a bigger leg.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I
pretty
saw
much
too.
it. And the one other special teams note I'd add, if we're doing the who's the UDFA that extends it, I think Jordan Healy has a real chance to make this team.
Yeah, they like him.
He got one-on-one reps with Slater.
Yeah.
I like that he's a true special teamer. He only played 40 snaps at linebacker in college. Right. There's obviously a learning curve for any player, but I think that probably lessens it a little bit because a guy like DeMarcus Mitchell last year obviously proved to be a good special teamer, but he was a full-time defensive end in college. He didn't have the special teams experience that a guy like Jordan Healy does. He's kind of a rare player. You don't see true coverage guys at the college level that often. Like
so
Matthew
Schooler,
Slater's.
I think makes it still.
Yeah.
Slater obviously makes it still. Cody Davis has been limited. He had that bad injury.
So
last
I
year.
had Cody Davis off because him and Helig probably play similar positions too.
So maybe it could be Cody Davis that misses out. I have DeMarcus Mitchell off right now too. I just think that they're too crowded there. And if they like Helig, then it probably pushes them off even more. All right, so that was a cool 2 hours of minicamp recap. I love it. Thanks to Marine in the booth for not falling asleep on us over there. And we're going to be back next week. Obviously, we're on DeAndre Hopkins' watch right now, but maybe we'll have some more just kind of sit on it and percolate a little bit on minicamp as well. But Patriots are off until the end of July. Well, no, I don't think we've formally announced training camp date yet, so I'm not going to say it. But end of July is training camp, so a little bit of a dead period here, but we're going to be here every single week still talking Patriots roster. We'll do some camp preview breakdowns, things like that. Obviously, we'll talk about news and things too. So until then, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.